Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sleep Detective podcast, where good sleep, health, and longevity are inevitable. Today, I want to talk about what triggers insomnia. Now, I know for me that my insomnia started during late pregnancy and it didn't go away after my son was born. So I know what triggered my sleep issues. And some of my clients know what triggered theirs as well, but not everyone has a known trigger because sleep issues can also happen gradually and get worse over time, or they can ebb and flow and people go through phases of good sleep and bad sleep. So today, I want to talk about what can trigger insomnia and how sleep issues happen, even if you don't know what actually triggers it. So, like I mentioned, for myself, it was pregnancy, and I've worked with quite a few people and talked to many women where pregnancy or childbirth is what triggered their sleep issues, which I will say is miserable because you're already not sleeping because you're pregnant and uncomfortable or just had a baby. So it's definitely a double whammy. But other things can also trigger it from people I've talked to. So I've had people take antibiotics for H. pylori, and then now they can't sleep all of a sudden. Definitely surgery also can trigger it, which makes sense because that's really stressful for your body. And and your body has to recover from that. You're given a lot of different drugs from surgery, and especially antibiotics, which affect your gut health. So it totally makes sense that surgery would affect sleep. I've had people where vaccinations have triggered their insomnia, or getting COVID has triggered their insomnia and other sicknesses. And then stress from divorce can, and other things can also trigger insomnia, even work stress. So one of my clients right now, Richard, has this history where he was working 70 to 80 hours a week. And, his sleep deteriorated to where he was only sleeping 1 or 2 hours a night. And now, luckily, his sleep has more than doubled since he started the program. So he's gone up to now 4 to 5 hours a night and said that this has made such a difference to his emotional state. And he's been re engaging with life in the last week, which is so awesome. So, again, like these are known triggers that can happen, but then for a lot of people, they have no idea what caused their insomnia. And this is what I want to point out is true, whether you know what triggered your insomnia or not. The fact is, your body wasn't healthy before your insomnia happened. So let's say for me, pregnancy triggered my insomnia, but my body was already in the process of breaking down. And for me, I believe that I had a parasite that I had gotten 13 years before while traveling in Nepal and India. I got really sick. I didn't take antibiotics at first. And I think that it lingered with me for many years and slowly started damaging my gut, which led to food sensitivities. I'm now sensitive to gluten and dairy, and I was sensitive to lots of other foods when I tested a couple years ago. And so yeah, so that parasite damaged my gut, which over time led to hormone imbalance. And yes, when I did these tests 2 years after I had my son, I had major hormone imbalance. But that didn't just happen out of the blue, right? That happened from this parasite damaging my gut, from my body having to release a lot of cortisol and make a lot of cortisol because that parasite caused so much inflammation in my gut. And whenever the body is focusing on making a lot of cortisol to deal with stress and inflammation, it takes those resources away from sex hormones. So then hormones can become depleted. And then that parasite also affected my liver function. So did drinking too much alcohol in my 20s and 30s, but having the parasite did not help because pathogens like that, they create all these toxins in the gut. And so those build up and the liver can't handle that, especially if you're also drinking alcohol and exposed to a lot of other toxins. And so that one parasite started to affect so many different things in my body. It eventually led to hormone imbalance, and getting pregnant at age 38 just was the final straw. And so that is what is true, even if you know that antibiotics or surgery or a divorce triggered your insomnia, that those things were just the final straw. And your body now at that point wasn't able to adapt anymore, because our bodies want to stay in balance. They will do whatever they can to stay in balance. But eventually it gets to the point where they can't any to some of us who are more predisposed to sleep issues, it's going to lead to insomnia. So the trigger can be different for everyone, or there can be no known trigger. But no matter what, the body's slowly breaking down over time because of all the stress that it's under. And so that stress is also going to be different for everyone. I see people with heavy metals. I actually had also high uranium, and I had copper toxicity, likely from being on birth control, even though that was 10 years before I ever developed insomnia. So there are lots of different things that can lead to insomnia over time. And eventually, sometimes it leads to, a final straw, the straw that broke the camel's back, as we say. If that is a known trigger, then that leads to you not being able to sleep. And so even when I talked about my client Richard, who has had major improvement in just a couple months, he felt like starting the mold protocol is what helped. So my assessment determined that he had likely mold toxicity, but it was also the mold toxicity on top of the work stress, on top of the other imbalances in his body, that led to his sleep just continually deteriorating over the past couple of years. So again, there's not one thing, there's many things, and it's really the result of the body being in what I call metabolic chaos, which I talked about in episode 100, of what really causes insomnia is your body's breaking down. It's not in a healthy state anymore. And I know this is hard to believe for a lot of people, because so many of the clients who I work with are very healthy in that they eat really well. They eat organic foods, they care about what they eat, they work on minimizing toxins, they exercise, they might even take supplements, they do what they can to manage stress, they're following the sleep hygiene that's recommended. And so I know it's hard for a lot of people to believe that this is a health issue when they're doing everything they can to be healthy. And I know how frustrating that is too, because I have cared about my health for a long time. I started studying nutrition when I was in my early 20s and just became fascinated with it. So I started eating really well, 20 years ago, and caring about organic. I worked on a local organic biodynamic farm, and I exercised. Looking back, turns out I over-exercised, but I exercised often. I love to backcountry snowboard and mountain bike and hike and trail run and all of those things, which we are told are very healthy. And even, before I got insomnia, I was studying supplements. I managed the supplement department of a couple health food stores. So again, I've been passionate about health for a long time, and yet I still developed insomnia. So I hope that that reassures you that if you are trying to do everything you can to be healthy and you still can't sleep, it's not your fault and you're doing a lot of the right things. There's just something more going on in your body that we need to find out. And so that's why I do this functional lab testing. That's how I found out what was causing my insomnia, and that's how I find out what's causing my clients' insomnia, because it's more than just one thing. By the time you are experiencing any kind of symptoms such as sleep issues, your body isn't healthy and multiple systems of your body have started breaking down. Your body can't get back into balance even though it wants to. And so it's affecting your sleep. So the way to get back in balance is to figure out what's out of balance, start supporting those things. So that's looking at gut health, it's looking at liver function, it's looking at food sensitivities, it's looking at toxins and heavy metals and where inflammation is coming from. It's even looking at neurotransmitters, which I now test for, which are super important for sleep. So it's really looking at the big picture of what's going on in your body, what's going on in your life that could be causing the stress and addressing those things. And then you can sleep normally. So that is exactly what I help my clients with in the Complete Sleep Solution program. So I do 4 functional lab tests and a number of assessments to get to the bottom of what's really causing sleep issues. And then my team and I give people a plan to get back in balance so that they can sleep normally by restoring their health. So if that's something you are interested in, you can book a consultation with me, and the link to that will be in the show notes. If you have any questions at all or a topic you want me to cover on this podcast, please feel free to email me, martha@thesleepdetective.com. And thanks for listening. I will talk to you next week.